All right, your SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Fowler GMC. And your next GMC Sierra truck or GMC Yukon. And that is driven by Fowler GMC and Pearl Brandon. FowlerGMC.com. Pre-owned and new. GMC Sierra trucks and GMC Yukons. All at Fowler GMC. Right there, Pearl Brandon. FowlerGMC.com. Hit the website right now. FowlerGMC.com. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. We welcome in Cole Thompson, Houston, Texas Sports Talk Radio, SEC Unfiltered. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Cole, did you do an interview and get a bunch of Penn State fans revved up?
I mean, of course. Naturally, all I got to do is just say that you can maybe win the national title this year. People believe that you are going to actually live up to expectations. And then, it's not just the Penn State fans, it's the Ohio State fans asking, when has James Franklin won the big one? Or the Oregon fans going, why are you underselling us? Or even the Illinois fans that somehow have gained confidence in the last 2 years to be able to step up to the plate and not be afraid to talk mad crap to people outside of their own conference. Yeah, I mean, it's been a fun time, but listen, as much as it seems like it's crazy, I am buying a lot of stock into what's going on in Happy Valley right now. There's a lot of reason for optimism. There's a lot of reasons to believe that this team has turned the corner. All
right, I'm not buying it.
Yeah, listen, I get it. I completely get it. This is a guy that has to prove himself, and he is 1-16 against top 10 teams over his history at Penn State. But if you can't beat him, join him. And that's kind of what he did last season. James Franklin said, my defense underneath Tom Allen, that was a top 10 unit, was not good enough. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go ahead and hire the guy who cannot stomach the head coach currently in Columbus, Ohio, so much so that he didn't even show up for the national championship parade to become my defensive coordinator and hopefully get us over the hump. So he goes and he adds in Jim Knowles. He retains both of his star running backs. He has 4 or 5 starting offensive linemen with over 400 snaps last year returning. He also gets to welcome in Oregon to Happy Valley for the whiteout game that is actually going to be played in a monumental environment and not just this run-of-the-mill, we'll throw it in a Rutgers performance or if Washington comes to town. No, it's a big-time game. They also only have one major road test after the month of October. In the month of October all the way until December. It's like, if not now, when, James Franklin? Everything is lined up for you to actually be a team that can go 11-1 or 12-0 in the regular season, get your revenge in Indianapolis, and be the number 1 seed in the college football playoff. Everything is in line this season. So I'm very much with you when it comes to, if you're not buying it, this is my last year I can continue to defend James Franklin. It's the exact same way I feel about Brian Kelly. If not now, when? Because I don't think there's enough energy left in my body that gives me the opportunity to continuously stick my neck out for you.
All right, Cole Thompson, SEC Insider on the Out of Bounds show. He's SEC Unfiltered plus Houston Sports Talk Radio. And, Penn State hadn't been relevant. Well, the national media tries to make them relevant every year. They really haven't won a big game since Reagan was in office. And so we'll see if they can turn the corner. You're right. For our listeners, he's referencing Jim Knowles was the defensive coordinator at Ohio State the last few years. They won the national championship last year, and he left to go to Penn State. So you're saying it's because he dislikes Ryan Day so much?
I mean, it was very evident that they were not seeing eye to eye toward the end. There were rumors that he was going to take the Oklahoma defensive coordinator job. There were rumors that he was getting looked at for the Miami defensive coordinator job. His time in Columbus was very much coming to an end by the time that they reached the national championship. Okay. It was just a matter of who is going to be the one to bring him on in. Some people thought he was going to maybe take a group of 5 head coaching job. The Tulsa job was very close to him just because of the relationship that he has with the state of Oklahoma. But there was always evidence that he was leaving this offseason. Now, again, when it comes to Ohio State, they have, in my opinion, the 2 best players in college football with tight Caleb Downs and Jerry. My biggest question isn't even at the quarterback spot, which, by the way, credit to where credit's due for Ryan Day. He's not made it to where I believe I have to start Julian Saying, or I have to name Lincoln Keenholz my starter. He's making it abundantly clear, if none of these guys have won the job, then I'm going to make this a battle until somebody separates themselves. Even if I do believe that this is a quarterback battle that ends up going to Julian Saying. What I really worry about is the coordinator hires. A lot of people don't look at the roster construction. A lot of people overreact to what they lost in the portal or what they lost in the NFL draft. I don't think enough people pay attention to how much of a drop-off you are going to see in terms of play calling and design from what Jim Knowles ran the last 2 years to what Matt Patricia is expected to bring in from the NFL level. I'm not saying it's going to be bad. I'm not saying that Ohio State is going to end up underachieving and finishing 9-3 and missing the playoff, but Jim Knowles was a very special talent, and it's a big reason why I buy so much stock into what he's going to do in State College. It's a reason why I'm somewhat selling Ohio State to repeat as national champions because of what they lost and who they decided to replace them with.
Okay. Cole Thompson on the Out of Bounds show, SEC Unfiltered. Who's the sleeper for you in the SEC this year?
Ooh, Bo, that's a tough question because I don't know if there really is a sleeper. I mean, if you want to be honest, Florida to me does make a lot of sense.
Sure.
And I say Florida because Florida right now, their schedule is so daunting. But let's just take out the schedule. Let's just look at the roster in general. It's very hard not to consider this team a top 10 roster on paper. I mean, what they've been able to do to rebuild the entire defense over the last 2 years is beyond impressive. And a lot of that returning talent, 8 starters from a season ago that really started to hit its stride down the stretch with wins over LSU and Ole Miss. They're back for another year. The offensive personnel is going to be healthy at the wide receiver position. You have Trey Wilson, and it feels like half of the country forgot who he was. He is an absolute firecracker in the slot that can take the tops off of any defense and put you into a blender of concern. But you also have the young guys, Dallas Wilson, Vernell Brown comes on in, the other 5-star, Deshaun Montgomery, really solid tight end play with Hayden Hansen. They, for my money, have the most underappreciated running back room in the SEC with who I think is going to light the conference on fire this year. And so it all comes down to DJ Lagway's health because if you look at the roster and say, okay, well, what are we going to be if X person's our quarterback? You're probably saying 7-5 because if you don't have a lot of faith in Harrison Bailey, the backup. But let's say it's DJ, and it's a healthy DJ Lagway, and it's the guy that we saw really kind of take over games and come into his own element down the stretch in November. That's a guy that you can say 9-3 is on the table. 10-2 is not that far-fetched. And yes, we still have the tough matchups on the road against LSU, and then we welcome in Texas, and then we have to go play against Miami, and then Texas A&M, which I believe may be the 4 most important game stretch in all of the SEC this year, because it will truly tell you who Florida is as a program. If they can get past that, and they have a quarterback that shows that they are in a good position to constantly see growth and maturity, it's really hard not to imagine them to at least be 9-3. And if they're 8-4, they're a team that's going to ruin a 10-win season for somebody else, whether it be a Tennessee, an LSU, an Ole Miss. They're going to knock them out of the college football playoff.
Okay.
So there's a lot, I think, to liking games though right now.
I agree. Lagway healthy, they are dangerous. Lagway healthy, he may be the best quarterback in the SEC. And I love what he did down the stretch, and that was on one leg. So we'll see what he looks like if he is healthy and plays the full season, which we hope he does. What about your Texas A&M Aggies at quarterback?
Okay, for starters, Bo, they're not my Aggies. I have no correlation to that program other than just the fact that they live around my vicinity. You know what they are, Bo? To me, they are an NHL team coming to Houston. And I know what people are going to say, how are you correlating this? Just bear with me for a second. So I have been told as a massive NHL fan for years and years and years that Houston is the next team to get an NHL franchise. Okay. And I believe that there would be great loyalty and there would be great fandomism and there would be great passion. And when you know this city, they care about their sports teams. They really do. It doesn't show up on the national stage, but internally you can tell a fierceness for the Rockets and for the Astros and for the Texans. But I've heard about the jersey design, and I've heard about the logo, and I've heard about the investors, and I've heard about who they're looking to hire as an actual president of ice operations. And I'm like, okay, all that's cool. I've heard it for so long, I'll believe it when I see it. And that's Texas A&M for me. Because Texas A&M, on paper, they have everything that's going right for them this year. They have one of the best offensive lines in college football. Take out the SEC narrative, just in college football, 5 returning starters. They have a great rushing room. And I mean, they have 3 guys that would start for, I would say, 100 teams in college football with Le'Veon Moss, Reuben Owens, and Amari Daniels. They have a good change of pace back in E.J. Smith. They upgraded at wide receiver tremendously this offseason with Casey Concepcion coming on in from NC State. Mario Craver, a guy that you guys know very well, is now catching deep shots from Marcel Reed, and he's making it look easy. He has been, from people that I spoke to actually on Saturday, the most improved player from the time that he arrived in College Station to now. And Will Lee actually told me at SEC Media Days that was the toughest wide receiver to guard last season. He was elated that he knew that he was going to be on his team instead of playing against him next year. So
wow. So he was, for our listeners, he was at Mississippi State last year. Go ahead, Cole.
Yeah, but they love what they've seen from this offensive personnel with Colin Klein going into year 2. And again, it's a Mike Elko defense. So you're really going to tell me that after an entire season of looking at mediocrity, Elko, who has been known for transcending these fierce defenses into the backbone of a team, is not going to get the job done? It's so hard for me to doubt Texas A&M. But I have been burned so many times, just like an NHL team coming to Houston. I'll believe it when I see it. Everything I'm saying right now I think is a fact, but the other thing that's a fact is that A&M for years has woken up for the big game. They've shown up for the matchups against the top 25 teams. And then they don't, and they play too close for comfort or lose to teams that are sitting at 3-9 at the end of the year, or 4-8 at the end of the year. They've lost to Mississippi State multiple times inside of Starkville because of they didn't pay enough attention to those games. They went down to the wire a few times. With Arkansas, they had to go to overtime in the Southwest Classic for several years. Last season, they were a game away from going to the college football playoff and making it to the SEC championship. I think a lot of people forget about that, and they end up losing to Auburn in 4 overtimes, an Auburn team that got boat raced multiple times and had 10 total turnovers against an Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Cal team that all underachieved last season. So it's like, I want to believe that Texas A&M has turned the corner. I want to believe that Texas A&M is going to be in the hunt for the college football playoff. But it's like the NHL coming to Houston. I will believe it when I see it because I've heard this so many times. I got to actually see it at this point.
Who do you have going to the college football playoff out of the SEC, Cole?
I think it's pretty simple. Alabama, I believe, is going to win the SEC. I know that there's the questions when it comes to Cam Miller, but you look at the rest of this roster, it feels like that Kalen DeBoer in year 2 is going to impress a lot of people and get people to kind of stop talking about, hey, what went wrong last season. They beat Texas. I think Texas, they go 11-1. Their lone losses to Florida in the Swamp week 5. I just feel like that's a very big trap game for Arch Manning, road environment. Still, they're not going to be punished. They're going to get their way into the college football conversation, and they'll be at the SEC runner-up, so they'll be either a 4 or a 5 seed. I think LSU, as long as we don't see in total regression on the offensive side from Garrett Nussmeier, their roster is too good, and more importantly, I think if their schedule is so manageable, they should at least get to 10-2 and be in the postseason. I think Georgia, we're somewhat sleeping on Georgia right now because of they're not the focal point of the offseason conversation. We're too busy talking about Arch Manning and talking about what's going on in Tuscaloosa and talking about TJ Lagway's health and talking about Garrett Nussmeier and Brian Kelly, what he's got to do. But if you want to doubt what's going on with Kirby Smart's roster, that's your own funeral that you can pay for. I'm not going to do that, which is why I do believe that he is going to end up leading them to a 10-2 season. They go to the playoff. The question is going to be what happens with the 15, Texas A&M, South Carolina, Florida. I think Oklahoma belongs in that conversation. Are we going to see maybe the ACC be punished because of what happened last season with SMU and Penn State? Woo. Where, yes, SMU did do its job and got to 11-1, but the performance that they decided to put on in State College ends up now benefiting only the Big Ten and the SEC. So that will be really interesting. I don't think it's going to happen. I personally have Georgia Tech outlasting South Carolina for my last college football playoff spot. But bygones be bygones. If a 9-3 SEC team looks the part over an 11-2 Georgia Tech or an 11-2 Miami squad, they may end up getting the nod.
All right, Cole Thompson, SEC Unfiltered, out of Houston, Texas, on the Out of Bounds show and the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. I got to hit on this for a second. So this would be unbelievable. You have at Georgia Tech, you have Haynes King and Brent Key putting together a magical year, maybe kind of like Arizona State last year, and going to the college football playoff. Is that right?
I do. It sounds crazy. I don't think it is. Guys, when you look at their schedule, they are very much benefiting off of having a lot of good home games and having a quick pathway to kind of knowing what they are as a team. Keep in mind that Week 3 game against Clemson is at home, 11 a.m. kick, Bobby Dodd Stadium, and you're going to know what your offensive personnel is. This is a trap game for Clemson that ends up benefiting you because of what you have offensively. And this was a game that last season, when you talk about the 7 overtime matchup with Georgia, they showed you that they have an identity that works. They upgrade at wide receiver, in my opinion, despite losing Eric Singleton with the addition of Eric Rivers from FIU and Dane Patterson. They also have 4 returning starters on the offensive line with an offensive line coach as their head coach, 7 returning starters on defense. And then look at their schedule. They stay in the southeastern region of the United States all the way up until the second to last week in November, where they play at Boston College. The only other tough road game that they have is in Durham, North Carolina on October 25th against Duke. They close out the season with back-to-back games against Pitt, who I believe is going to be a really challenging team, like kind of a spoiler role in the ACC. And then a neutral site game against Georgia, where last season they pushed Georgia to the brink. I think if they get the upset win over Clemson in Week 2. So now we're talking about potentially an 11-1 or 10-2 ACC runner-up with a win over the conference champion. I think the committee is going to take some of that into consideration. It's a little bit different when you look at last year because you didn't have that head-to-head game of SMU versus Clemson in the regular season. You'll have evidence to say we can't punish a team for beating the beating the conference champion in the regular season for a game that wasn't promised when they decided to go break bread on Week 1. That's ultimately what I think gets a Georgia Tech in over any SEC team for the number 5 spot.
Cole Thompson, okay, on the Out of Bounds show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Does Sam Pittman get fired after this year?
I don't think he gets fired. I think he steps down, personally. There's something about, and I do. It's a mutual parting of ways. Like it's an unwritten rule in the world of college football and really just sports in general. We're making a change, but we have such high regard and respect for you that we're going to let you announce that you're stepping away from the program.
But he's still going to want the bag of cash, so he's going to have. It's going to have to be done in a way that they say we're buying you out,
right?
But quote unquote not firing you.
Right, but the way you do so is by not going 6-6. Because remember, with the contract negotiations, if he hits 6+ wins, he gets an extension of a year and an extension when it comes to salary. If they finish below 500, then it doesn't happen. That extension doesn't come in, so it doesn't add another year to the contract. It doesn't hurt his salary. So I think they're going to be around a 4-8, 5-7 team. I like Taylor Green a lot. I think that he is a phenomenal quarterback that, when he's on point, is maybe a top 15 passer in college football. But they just don't have the pieces around them. They don't have it at wide receiver. They don't have it on the offensive line. They don't have it on the defensive side. You know, you've been hearing reports coming out of Fayetteville right now that it has just been dreadful at times when it comes to the defensive personnel. There's been fights going on internally between the staff. So there's a reason to believe that there is going to be change in Fayetteville. But again, I always bring this back to – go ahead.
John Summerall from Tulane. Or, well, we'll see who else may win at the G5 level.
I'll stop you here when it comes to the Rhett Lashley conversation, because everyone brings up Rhett Lashley from SMU.
Okay, well, let's go there. Lashley had a great year at SMU. Did they catch lightning in a bottle, maybe like Arizona State, or are they going to continue to roll? So Lashley, Summerall, I mean, who else are you thinking? Or what were your thoughts on Rhett Lashley to Arkansas?
He's not taking the Arkansas job. Like, I will just put this firmly out there. A lot of people look at SMU and they say, well, it's an ACC school and it's a rising ACC school. So therefore the Arkansas job is better. Right now in the current status of college football, the Arkansas job is not better than the SMU job. It isn't. And it's not better when it comes to the funds. It's not better when it comes to the allocation of money. It's not better when it comes to the resources that are utilized towards recruiting, when it comes to the transfer portal additions, NIL collective. Rhett Lashlee actually has it made where if there's not a premier job, and I mean a premier job
like
in
LSU
college football,
right?
There's no reason to leave. The people of Dallas love him. The program is gaining money left and right. And as somebody that's grown up in the state and knows what the history of SMU truly is, when the boosters see results, they are willing to write blank checks that eventually will cash in toward national title odds. And I think that SMU has an opportunity to do so. So I understand that the SEC is this very prominent program. And it's honestly a shame on a guy like Sam Pittman, and I brought this up with Arkansas fans before. It kind of disgusts me that the way that we expect him to get to 8+ wins every single year and then be considered a dark horse for the run at the college football playoff when they don't invest the money properly in the football program. They invest it in baseball, they invest it in basketball, but they tell him we're going to give you C+ advantages and we want A+ results. It's not a sustainable formula that's going to be successful where Lashlee's going to have that in Dallas for the next several years, especially after taking his team in year one to the college football playoff and the ACC final. Plus, keep in mind, his last year in the American Conference, SMU won the conference. So he has gained a lot of great equity out there. I don't think Summerall is going to leave Tulane for a job like Arkansas right now.
Okay.
I think if Auburn opened up, we could have that conversation.
Fair enough.
His relationship to the state of to Kentucky, I think maybe creates that chance of, I want to go home. But he was the runner-up, and for many people, the favorite for the North Carolina job. And there were a lot of addendums that were put in place that ended up not being sustainable to his liking, which then allowed the program to fully pivot towards the hiring of Bill Belichick. And so I think he's going to be picky and choosy. I mean, when you look at what he has in New Orleans right now, there's a reason why we talk about potentially Tulane as the top group of 5 program and constantly being able to afford the right type of personnel. They're going to be in the hunt for the college football playoff this year. I think that he can be very patient at a place like Tulane because of what the overall buy-in is from that fan base and from that collective that is going to wait for him to get an opportunity. I think that when we're talking about the Arkansas job, if it's not a G5 coach, you're looking at like a Glenn Schumann or someone like that, a defense coordinator or an offense coordinator that wants their opportunity to prove that they are worthy of a head coaching job. That's where I think Arkansas is.
All right, I got 20 seconds. I've got Auburn bouncing back and winning at least 8 or 9 games, especially with that schedule, and Jackson Arnold. What do you think?
I have Auburn firing Hugh Freeze after losing to Diego Pavia for the 4th straight time, and they go 6-6.
Damn. All right, we'll pick up on that next time you're on. I appreciate it, Cole. Be good, man.
Thanks, Bill, for having me. Talk to you soon, bud.
Cole Thompson, SEC Unfiltered, Houston, Texas Sports Talk Radio. He joined us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Lunch today brought to you by Taste Italian Kitchen in the Renaissance. Amazing pizzas and sandwiches and pastas at Taste Italian Kitchen in the Renaissance.